He was Spartacus. He was Vincent van Gogh. For 7 decades, Kirk Douglas commanded the screen with an intensity that defined Hollywood's golden age. With that famous cleft chin and those blazing eyes, he became one of cinema's most unforgettable leading men. But Kirk Douglas didn't just live long. He lived to 103 years old, and in his final years, he revealed a secret about life, purpose, and meaning that he had discovered after a near-death experience that changed everything. This isn't just another celebrity biography. This is the story of a man who faced death, survived against all odds, and spent the last decades of his life sharing a profound truth about what really matters. By the end of his remarkable life, Kirk Douglas had discovered something that most people never learn, a secret that transformed him from a Hollywood tough guy into one of the most generous and spiritual figures in entertainment history. If you want to learn life lessons from one of history's greatest survivors, hit that subscribe button. Now let's discover Kirk Douglas's final secret. To understand Kirk Douglas's final secret, we must first understand where he came from, because his journey began in the kind of poverty that shapes your entire understanding of what matters in life. Kirk Douglas was born Isher Danielowicz on December 9, 1916, in Amsterdam, New York. His parents were illiterate Jewish immigrants from Belarus, and the family lived in desperate poverty that young Isher could never forget. Kirk's father was a ragman, collecting junk with a horse and wagon to sell for pennies. The family struggled to afford food, and Kirk would later write about the shame of wearing hand-me-down clothes and the constant hunger that defined his childhood. From his earliest years, Kirk understood that education and ambition were his only escape from poverty. He worked dozens of odd jobs, from delivering newspapers to wrestling for money, anything to help his family and save for his future. In high school, Kirk discovered acting and found something revolutionary. When he was on stage, he wasn't the poor Jewish kid anymore. He could be anyone, and that transformation became intoxicating. Like many Jewish actors of his era, Isher Danielowicz knew he needed a more American name to succeed in Hollywood. He chose Kirk Douglas, strong, masculine, and completely removed from his immigrant roots. Even with talent and determination, Kirk's path to stardom wasn't easy. He worked in theater, took small roles, and slowly built a reputation as an intense, committed actor who brought raw power to every performance. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, Kirk Douglas exploded onto the Hollywood scene with performances in films like Champion, Ace in the Hole, and The Bad and the Beautiful. His intensity and masculinity made him a star. The 1950s and 1960s were Kirk's golden age. Spartacus, Lust for Life, Paths of Glory, Gunfight at the OK Corral. He became one of the most bankable and respected actors in Hollywood, commanding huge salaries and creative control. But despite all his success, Kirk later admitted that something was missing. He had wealth, fame, beautiful women, and critical acclaim. But these things didn't bring the satisfaction he thought they would. Kirk's intensity wasn't just an acting technique. It defined his life. He was driven, competitive, sometimes difficult to work with, always pushing himself and others to be better. But this intensity came at a cost to his personal relationships and inner peace. On February 13, 1991, Kirk Douglas was 74 years old and still active in Hollywood. But in a single moment, everything changed. He came face to face with death in a way that would transform his entire understanding of life. Kirk was a passenger in a helicopter that collided with a small plane over Santa Paula, California. The crash was catastrophic. 2 people died in the collision, and Kirk's helicopter had to make an emergency landing. In those terrifying seconds, as the helicopter plummeted toward the ground, Kirk faced his own mortality. He later described feeling certain he was about to die and experiencing a clarity about life that had eluded him for 7 decades. Against all odds, the helicopter pilot managed to land the damaged aircraft. Kirk and the other passengers survived with injuries, but they were alive. Kirk had been given a second chance that 2 other people in the crash didn't receive in the immediate aftermath. Kirk struggled with survivor's guilt. Why had he lived when others died? What was he meant to do with this unexpected gift of continued life? Kirk's physical recovery was challenging, but manageable. At 74, he was remarkably fit and healthy. But the psychological impact of the crash was profound and lasting. The crash triggered an existential crisis that Kirk couldn't ignore. All his success, all his fame, all the roles he had played. What did any of it mean if life could end in an instant? Just 5 years after the helicopter crash in 1996, Kirk suffered a severe stroke that left him with significant speech impairment. At 79 years old, the man known for his powerful voice could barely speak, to near-death experiences in 5 years forced Kirk to confront mortality in a way most people never do. These experiences became the catalyst for a complete transformation in how he understood life's purpose. Kirk's recovery from the stroke was arduous. He had to relearn how to speak through intensive speech therapy. The frustration was overwhelming for a man who had made his living with words and performance. During this dark period, Kirk began to understand something profound. His identity had been built on being Kirk Douglas, the movie star, but that person was fading. Who was he really, beneath all the roles and the fame? Kirk began exploring spirituality in ways he'd never had before. He reconnected with his Jewish heritage, studied philosophy and religion, and searched for deeper meaning beyond Hollywood. Success. These experiences, the helicopter crash and the stroke, became the foundation for Kirk Douglas's transformation from driven movie star to spiritual seeker and philanthropist. His final secret was beginning to take shape. After surviving 2 brushes with death, Kirk Douglas spent the last decades of his life living according to a profound secret he had discovered. This wasn't just a philosophy, it became his daily practice. And his legacy to the world. Kirk's final secret was beautifully simple, yet revolutionary. The purpose of life is to give, not to get. After spending decades accumulating wealth and fame, he discovered that true fulfillment comes from generosity and service to others. Kirk later wrote that his near-death experiences showed him something crucial. When you face death, you don't think about your awards, your money, or your famous roles. You think about the people you love and the difference you made in the world. Kirk's transformation included a deep reconnection with his Jewish faith. He began studying Torah, consulting with rabbis, and exploring the spiritual traditions his immigrant parents had practiced but that he had largely abandoned. In pursuit of Hollywood success, Kirk became fascinated with the Jewish concept of tzedakah, often translated as charity, but more accurately meaning righteousness or justice. The idea is that giving to others isn't optional goodness but a fundamental obligation of living properly. Kirk and his wife, Ann Douglas, began giving away their fortune on a massive scale. They donated over $100 million to various causes, focusing on education, healthcare, and helping those in need. They established the Douglas Foundation to formalize their giving and ensure their philanthropy would continue beyond their lifetimes. The foundation focused on areas where they felt they could make the most significant impact. One of Kirk's favorite projects was building hundreds of playgrounds in poor neighborhoods across Los Angeles. He loved the idea that children would play, laugh, and create memories in spaces he helped create. Kirk donated millions to universities and schools, particularly those serving underprivileged communities. He believed education had saved him from poverty and wanted to provide those same opportunities to others. After watching his wife Ann's mother suffer from Alzheimer's, Kirk became a major supporter of Alzheimer's research and care facilities, donating millions to help find treatments and support families affected by the disease. As a Navy veteran himself, Kirk never forgot his military service. He donated generously to veterans' causes, helping those who had served their country but struggled with physical or mental health challenges. Afterward, Kirk wrote numerous books in his later years, including memoirs and reflections on aging, spirituality, and finding meaning. These books were part of his mission to share what he had learned with others. Despite his speech difficulties from the stroke, Kirk continued to speak publicly about his beliefs. He was open about his struggles, his faith, and his conviction that life's purpose is found in giving rather than receiving. Kirk's final secret wasn't just theoretical, it became his daily practice. He and Ann looked for opportunities to help others, whether through large donations or small acts of kindness. Giving became their way of life. The tough guy actor who had spent his career playing warriors and fighters transformed into a gentle philanthropist and spiritual seeker. Kirk had found what all his Hollywood success couldn't provide: genuine peace and purpose. Kirk Douglas didn't just discover his final secret, he lived it every day for the last quarter century of his remarkable life. His transformation from movie star to humanitarian became an inspiration to millions. Kirk approached aging differently after his transformation. Instead of fighting to maintain his image as the virile leading man, he embraced each stage of life as an opportunity for growth and contribution. His marriage to Anne Douglas, which lasted 66 years until his death, became the foundation of his philanthropic work. Anne shared his commitment to giving and was instrumental in directing their charitable efforts. Kirk's relationship with his 4 sons, including actor Michael Douglas, improved dramatically in his later years. He became more emotionally available and openly loving, a transformation his children noticed and appreciated. Kirk spoke openly about aging and death, refusing to treat these topics as taboo. He believed that accepting mortality was essential to living fully, and that his near-death experiences had taught him not to fear the end, even in his 90s. Kirk continued writing, speaking, and creating. His creativity wasn't about maintaining fame, but about sharing wisdom and contributing to the ongoing conversation about meaning and purpose. When Kirk reached 100 years old in 2016, the celebration wasn't about his movies or his fame. It was about his transformation, his generosity, and the lives he had touched through his philanthropy. Kirk's final public appearances were marked by humility and gratitude. He thanked people for their love, emphasized the importance of giving, and encouraged others to find purpose beyond material success. At age 83, Kirk had a second bar mitzvah symbolizing his renewed commitment to his Jewish faith. This ceremony represented his spiritual journey and his return to the traditions of his childhood. Kirk's transformation influenced other Hollywood figures to become more philanthropic. His example showed that stars could use their wealth and influence to make genuine differences in people's lives. By his final years, Kirk had secured a legacy that went far beyond his films, while Spartacus and his other movies would be remembered. His greatest role was as a humanitarian and giver. In his final interviews and writings, Kirk's message was consistent. Don't wait for a near-death experience to discover what matters. Give now, love now, make a difference now. When Kirk Douglas died on February 5, 2020, just weeks after his 103rd birthday, he died peacefully, surrounded by family. Having lived according to his final secret for decades, the tributes after his death focused not just on his legendary film career, but on his transformation, his generosity, and the wisdom he shared about living a meaningful life. Kirk left behind more than movies and money. He left a blueprint for transforming pain into purpose, success into service, and fame into a force for good in the world. Douglas's final secret, that life's purpose is found in giving rather than getting, continues to inspire people around the world who are searching for meaning beyond material success. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of Kirk's secret is that it's available to everyone. You don't need to be a movie star or have millions of dollars. The principle works at any scale. Giving creates purpose, generosity brings joy, and serving others provides the meaning we all seek. Kirk Douglas lived 103 extraordinary years, but his final secret wasn't about longevity. It was about living with purpose. After surviving a helicopter crash and a debilitating stroke, he discovered that the meaning of life isn't found in what we accumulate, but in what we give away. From poverty in upstate New York to Hollywood stardom to becoming one of America's greatest philanthropists, Kirk's journey teaches us that it's never too late to transform your life and discover your true purpose. His final secret challenges us to ask ourselves, are we living to get or living to give? Are we building our own legacy of fame and fortune? Or are we creating meaning through service and generosity? Kirk proved that real transformation is possible at any age, that near-death experiences can become catalysts for rebirth, and that the most important role any of us will ever play is simply being a good human being. If Kirk Douglas's incredible life story and final secret inspired you, please share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about the wisdom of remarkable lives. Thanks for watching. And remember, the purpose of life is to give. Don't wait for a helicopter crash to figure that out.